Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the first Lumia tablet. This is the Lumia 2520 running Windows RT 8.1, and of course Windows RT is the version of Windows designed to operate on ARM processors. And the ARM processor in this is the Snapdragon 800, clocked at 2.2 gigahertz. Again, that's a quad-core processor. And we also have 2 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of internal storage standard. There are no other size options. Now, this is sold by Verizon or AT&T in the US. There is no Wi-Fi only version sold in the US at this time. So this is available on contract for $399 or off contract for $499. Now there are 2 colors available through Verizon. There's the red and the black. Red is kind of a glossy finish. Black is kind of that matte textured finish. You're probably familiar with that from other Lumia phones if you've seen those before. So let's go ahead and pull this open. And again, this is a review unit that Verizon sent out to me. So this has been opened, but I've been using this for a week with the plastic wrapper on it just to save it for this moment. We're doing a little cheating here, so let's go ahead and lift it out. You can see the plastic wrapper shows us a little bit about the features and buttons. Of course, we're going to explore all of that. And there you go. We have that very nice matte texture that Nokia is very good at. So in terms of our contents, we have our literature, including our 4G LTE SIM card, which has already been installed. And up here you see your Nokia branded SIM ejection tool. So let me go ahead and pull that open. So there we go, that's our Nokia branded SIM ejection tool. So let's get to the rest of the contents here, which include our LTE SIM card, which has already been installed. And then we also have our literature packet from Verizon. I'm not going to open that to take a look at it. We also have our kind of quick welcome to Windows. Shows you a little bit about the quick gestures and that sort of thing for operating Windows RT 8.1. And we also have our power adapter. So you can see a pretty large power adapter, and the thing is it's not using a standard micro USB charging cable. It's using this sort of proprietary barrel plug. So if you look at this, you can see very different than a lot of what other tablets are going with, but you do get higher voltage out of this, so it does charge quicker, especially with this 8,000 milliamp hour battery. So you definitely want a quicker charge. As you can see, we have folding prongs for traveling, Nokia branding, and again the finish actually matches that of the black Nokia Lumia 2520. Alright, the first thing we want to take a look at is this wrapper, which points to some of the features here, including the location of the micro SIM and micro SD card slot, our power lock button, volume up and down, USB 3.0 port, HDMI, this is a micro HDMI port, keyboard dock accessory, and the headset jack, as well as the power charging dock right here, or the charging port. So let's go ahead and peel this off. And we can start taking a closer look around, starting off with the back. Now, as you can see, we have this sort of textured material on the back. It has a really nice silky texture. Again, the black is different than something like the red, which has a glossy finish. So if you prefer the matte finish, which is less prone to showing fingerprints, you may want to consider that when choosing your color. So on the back, we have our branding, of course, 4G LTE, Verizon, Nokia branding. We have our NFC label indicating the general vicinity of the NFC radio. We also have the camera. This is a 6.7 megapixel camera, which is kind of an unusual size. So a lot of tablet cameras tend to be about 5 megapixels to 8 megapixels. And we have Carl Zeiss optics. And just above that is our microphone. Now this has 1080p at 30 frames per second video recording, so it's a pretty decent camera, but of course you see no LED flash here. Now along the top you'll see your volume rocker, and if you look closely here, you'll see they are kind of chromed finish, so a nice quality feel to it. The buttons are a little shallow feeling, so they're not as tactile as I'd like to see. We also have our power on and off button. Now also toward the top we'll find the SD card slot and micro SIM tray. So in order to access that, you do need to use a paper clip or the SIM ejection tool to get to it. So let's go ahead and do that. Pops right out. So there you go. As you can see, it's got a dual tray design, so one for the SIM and one for your micro SD card slot. Now, somewhat confusingly, along the left-hand side, you'll see these 2 circular ports. One is the headset jack, the one up here that's closer to the corner. Down here is the power charging port, so you do have to keep that in mind. Eventually you get it, but initially it's kind of confusing. Now toward the bottom you'll find the connection point for the keyboard dock, which is an accessory sold separately. This is similar to the keyboard dock on the Microsoft Surface. It uses magnets. Now the keyboard dock from Nokia also provides extra power, so it does have an internal battery to give you a little more power. Now on the right side, you'll find a USB 3.0 port, which is also compatible with micro USB 2.0. We also have a micro HDMI connector. Of course, none of those are included with the tablet, so you have to buy separate accessories. But because this is a Windows tablet, USB thumb drives, hard drives, and that sort of thing will work with this port. You just have to provide the adapter. Same with micro HDMI. You just need a micro HDMI cable to outputting to a TV. But of course, this has Bluetooth 4.0. And you could connect a Bluetooth keyboard. You can also connect a USB keyboard or mouse directly to it. It's one of the advantages of having a Windows tablet, is that it supports all those accessories right out of the box. All right, so let's go and take a look at the front of the tablet. Again, 10.1 inches is sort of a widescreen aspect ratio, which is a little more suitable for a keyboard. And of course, we have our home button for Windows, which is standard. This is capacitive, so it works whether the display is on or not. It's not backlit, unfortunately. We do have our speakers sort of hidden in the bezel. So if you look really closely at the edges, you'll see these little gaps here for the speakers on either side, left-hand and right-hand side. Facing toward the user, you do get stereo sound, and it's excellent. These are excellent speakers, and a nice, elegant solution for having front-firing speakers. I know a lot of tablets, especially the iPad, tend to shy away from these just because they're not very discreet looking. So they did a really nice job in Nokia's case, and they sound really loud. Now in terms of the secondary camera, this is a 2 megapixel front-facing camera, good for 720p video, and above that is the LED light, which lets you know whether it's active. Now in terms of our display, again, 10.1 inches. This has Nokia's clear black technology, LCD IPS, with great off-axis viewing angles. But as you can see, the glass is very reflective. There is not great anti-reflective properties with this glass. Also, there isn't a really good anti-fingerprint layer on this like you get with some other tablets. So for example, Apple's iPad has an oleophobic coating over the glass, which makes it easier to keep fingerprints off so you can wipe them off easily. This tends to hold on to them a little bit more stubbornly, so you kind of have to use a cleaner when you're cleaning this glass display. That's different than something like the iPad Air. But it's a nice display. It does have a tendency to show some edge bleeding or light leaking toward the edges of the LCD display, especially on dark backgrounds, which is kind of hard to demonstrate in this camera. But if you look here, you may be able to see it. You can kind of see that bleeding toward the edges. It's not a big concern. Most LCD panels will bleed in some way, but it tends to be a little more noticeable on this, possibly because the display is so bright. This is one of the brighter displays I've used on a tablet, so unfortunately that does come with some consequences, and of course you can minimize that just by going to your settings to bring down the screen brightness. Now I realize many of my followers are not Windows users, so they may not be terribly familiar with Windows 8, so we're going to take a quick look around Windows 8. So Windows 8 has actually two desktops. It has the standard Windows 8 desktop, which you can pinch in and out to see all of your tiles and apps. You can also scroll up to see your entire app catalog. But if you press the home button, it takes you to the classic desktop viewer, which is where some of these apps live. Some of these include Microsoft Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and OneNote. So all of these apps actually come with Windows 8 RT. These are RT versions of those apps, and they're pretty full-featured. So that's one of the great benefits of buying a Windows 8 RT tablet, is that it comes with the full Office suite. You can also quickly access those just by tapping on these tiles from the classic Windows 8 viewer. Now if you swipe in from the right, you get your charms bar, and as you can see, your clock and your wireless status appear here as well. But the charms bar includes things like search, which allows you to search the contents of your device, as well as Bing. You also have share, which is contextually based. So for example, if you're in Internet Explorer, you swipe in now and go to share. You have several options here, which includes mail, your contacts, or your reading list. So you can add this website to your reading list, which is an app that's also available from the home screen. We also have devices. So again, I'm in a website. This is contextually based. I'm in a website, so I can go to my printer from here. So it allows me to launch my printer. As you can see, it actually doesn't see my printers on the network just yet. It looks like I have to go to add a printer. So I can go ahead and add a device. It's searching for my printers on the network, so hopefully it should see two of them. All right, so it sees my two printers on the network, so I'm just going to select the one that's right next to me. It's installing the drivers, and it should be that simple, and we can start printing directly to our printer. Now, one of the great things about Windows is that it emphasizes full screen mode, so it fills up your screen with content. But to a lot of people that's confusing because they miss all of the controls they're used to, but it's pretty easy to get to them. So all you have to do is swipe up from the bottom and you get your tab browsing. In this case, because I'm in Internet Explorer, this changes. This is completely contextual. It depends on what app you're in. So right now I'm in IE, so I get my tabbed browsing options here as well. You can see I get my URL bar, my refresh button, etc., my favorites controls. So for example, if we go to the weather app and we swipe up, we get a different interface. Again, you have to start from the outside of the screen and swipe up. So you can see here we get this interface up top for going to our home, our places, weather maps, that sort of thing. We also can switch between C or Fahrenheit. There you go. It works pretty well. Actually, really, that's one of my favorite aspects of Windows in terms of the tablet environment. Now, we can also get the settings by tapping this three-dot icon just below. So instead of using the swipe-up gesture, you can do that as well. Now, if you want more options here, you can see we have that three-dot indicator as well. So, for example, you can open up a private tab using that feature. Now, if you swipe in from the left corner, you can see you can actually cycle between your previously open apps. Now, if you want to see all of your apps, just swipe back and get the list of open apps, and you can tap on any one of them to get to them. Do the same again, like that. Or you can use them side by side. So for example, all I have to do is drop this right here. Opens up a side-by-side viewer, and I can resize this window like so. Now, if I want to get rid of an app, all I have to do is resize it until it disappears. And if I want to close an app, just slide down and swipe to the left. Now, in terms of the home screen, as you can see, you can pinch in and out to see all of your tiles. So you can add quite a few tiles, and you can rearrange them just by tapping and holding on any one of them. You can move them around. You can also resize them, and you can rename these groups. So for example, if you want to name this the Windows group, where all the Windows apps are, you can do that as well. Now, if we swipe up, we can get to all of our apps, and the apps toward the left are optimized for Windows 8. So these are all of the newer apps from both Windows and Nokia. And toward the right is all the legacy apps which open in the desktop viewer. So that includes the Microsoft Office suite. You also have things like your Notepad, Paint, Math Input Panel, Character Map, the Calculator app, File Explorer. So we do have a file browser here as well, which acts just like you would expect it to act on any Windows terminal. Now, when you do get new apps like this Windows or HP Control Center, Printer Control Center, you'll get this little new icon. That's because I just installed the print drivers for my printers. So I can tap on that, brings me to my print controller, which is Windows 8 optimized, as you can see. Now, in terms of the apps they've included, we do have the standard array of Microsoft apps. So we have a weather app, Internet Explorer, our help app. We have a lot of our media apps, such as our camera app, which we'll explore a bit later. We have Xbox Music. So this is where you can purchase music or access your installed library. We also have our video library for Xbox Video. That includes TV shows and movie rentals. We also have our photo gallery, so this is where you'll find your photos, which also work with SkyDrive, so you can access your SkyDrive photo files here as well. We have our calendar app, the mail app, Skype, of course, because Skype is a Microsoft product. We have lots of other apps, including the Maps app. This is Microsoft Maps, not Nokia Maps. So it's a really full-featured map app with directions, and this does have GPS and GLONASS, so you can use this as a navigation tool. We have our reading list, so if you've added anything to your reading list, this is where they would appear. We also have our Microsoft Store, which is where you can purchase lots of apps. So I think there's 100,000 apps for the RT tablet right now. So you can see things that Nokia is recommending, and you can see top categories. So for example, if we go to social, so there we go. We have things like Facebook, Viber, Twitter. So for example, if you want to install the Twitter app, we can show you how to do that. Install. So the app is installed, and it let me know, so I can tap on that. It takes me right to the app, and I can log in and start using Twitter. Now, toward the far right, we have all of our Nokia and Verizon apps sort of grouped together here. So that includes things like Nokia Storyteller, which is sort of a creation tool. It allows you to organize your photos in sort of a gallery viewer to be shared with other people. I'm not going to go through that process here. We also have our camera app, which is a Nokia camera app. This is not the stock Windows app. We have My Nokia, which is sort of a help tool. This tells you a little bit about your Nokia tablet, some of the Nokia features. We have our full user guide here as well, so full interactive user guide. We also have Nokia Music, so this is Nokia's music app, which is pretty decent, but of course you also have the Xbox Music app if you prefer. We also have Nokia's Video Director, which is sort of an iMovie alternative. Allows you to stitch your movies together that you've recorded with your camera and create a sort of movie clip. They've also included a game for testing out the gaming performance of your tablet, sort of a cross-promotion with the DreamWorks movie. And then we also have the settings for your Verizon account, and then we also have My Verizon Mobile. Now we also have Nokia's Here Maps, and this is sort of a POI navigation tool that allows you to find local points of interest such as restaurants, hotels, entertainment, dining, and that sort of thing. As you can see, you can cycle between your POIs. So for example, if you're nearby and just want to find a good restaurant, you can tap on any one of these to take a look at it. There you go. So it's kind of a nice utility to have. Now if you want to pin any of these apps to the home screen, such as OneNote, all you have to do is tap and hold on it. It gets to your options panel here. You can see pin to start screen. So pins to the start screen, and there it is. Now we can move it around just by tapping and holding it and taking it over to, let's go to the Windows panel here. Now you can continue editing just by tapping and holding on it, and you can uninstall it, you can unpin it from the taskbar again, or you can resize it. So for example, we have several sizes. We have small, so if you want it to match the other icons, that's what you can do as well. You kind of have to move it around if you want them all to stay together, but you get the idea. Now the biggest selling point of this tablet are those 4 icons here: Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, and Excel. We also have OneNote. So if you tap on Word, it takes you to the Word right in the desktop viewer, the classic desktop viewer. You can see here we have our taskbar, so we can switch between all of the open apps as well. Now the best way to input text in Word, of course, is a physical keyboard, but we do have our on-screen keyboard as well. Just tap the on-screen keyboard icon in the system tray, brings it right up for you. Now you have several options. You have the full-size keyboard, or you have your split keyboard, or you have your handwriting keyboard, so you can use handwriting recognition in here. So as you can see, it translates it for you, and you can go ahead and insert it into your document when you're done, and you can also hide your keyboard as well. Now we also have a floating keyboard, so all you have to do is press this little icon up here to detach the keyboard. So now you can move the keyboard around as you prefer, and if you want, for example, some of these other characters, just tap and hold on it. Takes you to, for example, 6 or some of the other characters. Now we actually have 2 camera apps. So we have the Microsoft Camera app as well as the Nokia Camera. So if we go to the Microsoft Camera app, you can see that in order to take a photo, you just tap anywhere on the scene. Snaps the photo for you. If you swipe up from the bottom, you'll get your spot adjust, which is toggled off by default, so you can toggle that on. Now when you tap the screen, it adjusts the scene for you and takes the photo. And if you want to get to your photo, just tap on it, and there you go. As you can see, it actually has this burst mode, so you can select which shot you want right here. So you can say, that's the one I want. So you press the save button, and we're good. Now we also have our video mode, so we can record video. We can tap anywhere in the scene to adjust focus and exposure. Click stop. And if we swipe from the left, you can see our last recorded image or video. Plays it automatically for you. Now we also have panorama mode, which is pretty difficult to demonstrate in this environment here. So in order to take a panorama, you just tilt the camera around. Automatically takes the photo for you using the gyroscope. As you can see there, it took 1. And if you're going too far, it will tell you too far from last image. And as you can see, it's not working out too well. Normally it works pretty well, works better certainly with a phone, but you get the idea here. So once you're done taking your photo, it will stitch it for you. There we go, now it's working for me. So once you're done, you hit the check button, it stitches it together for you. And if we swipe from the right, we should see it. And there we go. It doesn't look terribly good in this case, but you get the idea. Now if you want to switch to the front-facing camera, again you swipe up to get to your controls, click Change Camera, and there you go, so there I am. We also have our timer, and we have our exposure, so we can adjust our exposure manually, which is really nice. So they did a pretty nice job with this camera app. Now in terms of the Nokia Camera app, it's even more basic and a little more traditional, so we can cycle between camera mode and video mode, like so. So in order to take a photo, we can tap to focus and then press the shutter release. It takes the photo for us. And we can go to video mode and record video by hitting the record button. And you can also tap to focus as well. And if you swipe up from the bottom, let's hit stop. If we swipe up from the bottom, you get some of your controls as well for this. So we have our options controls, so you can change the resolution of your video. So pretty basic as well. Now the options panel for the camera app is also pretty basic, so you can switch between 4:3 or 16:9. Again, pretty basic stuff. Now in terms of speakers, these are really loud and clear.
Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at the new Google Play edition of the LG G Pad.
Now in terms of performance, this tablet actually does a pretty good job. It launches apps pretty quickly, handles multitasking pretty seamlessly. I think the biggest issue I've had is flash content, which is not unusual. So flash content can still be pretty demanding on here. Of course, this does support flash through Internet Explorer. So for example, I'm on The Verge, it's playing back a flash video right on the website. And otherwise, you can see it handles this full website pretty quickly, pretty easily and smoothly. I can pinch in and out and zoom while I'm playing video in the background, right on the website. Now, just like the Microsoft Surface, using this tablet in portrait orientation is a little awkward, and it's clear they don't really intend it for it to be used this way, but of course you can. So it feels a little top heavy. It feels like it wants to leave the grip of your hands all the time, so it doesn't really feel very balanced. So it's really not meant to be used in portrait orientation, but content does scale to it just fine. So for example, a website scales just fine. And because it's such a sharp display, even the smallest text looks pretty good. Now, just to give you an idea of the differences between this and the most popular full-size tablet, the iPad Air, you can see we have a 4:3 screen. So that 4:3 screen gives you a little more screen real estate in aggregate, because even though it's not as wide as the Nokia, this is more of a wide screen, it's wider in terms of its portrait orientation, so it gives you a lot more screen real estate overall. This is better suited to a keyboard dock or a keyboard accessory, just because it's wider and better suited to a full-size keyboard. So again, it makes it a little more cumbersome to handle in portrait orientation as opposed to the iPad Air, but it's better suited to somebody who really wants to use this with a keyboard. Now, if it wasn't for the keyboard accessory, which takes advantage of this device's width, I would actually like to see these bezels reduced quite a bit. Especially in landscape orientation, it feels a little too wide. So for example, your thumbs don't have a lot of room to stretch over the display and interact with it. So it'd be nice if they reduced this bezel. It would also make it a little less cumbersome or a little strange to handle in portrait orientation. It just feels really top heavy. So if they reduce it, I think it would feel a little more comfortable. Now, we've actually seen that with some other Android tablets, like Samsung tablets, which have reduced the bezels in landscape orientation, which feels to me a little more comfortable. So it would be nice if they could do that with this tablet in the future. Now, even though we have these tapered corners, they are still pretty pointy, so they do kind of dig into your hand when you're handling it. And since it's not the lightest tablet in the world, it does feel a little uncomfortable to handle, so I'd actually like to see them round this off a bit more. So in conclusion, I think Nokia has done a really nice job creating a Windows 8 RT tablet, but of course it's up to you on whether you want a Windows RT tablet. Windows RT, of course, is limited to the app environment that Microsoft serves, but for most people, if they just need to use a web browser and need a few popular apps like Twitter and Facebook and that sort of thing, you pretty much are going to find it on an RT tablet without having to spend the extra to get a Pro tablet or something that's running an x86 chip. Now, Nokia has done a lot of interesting things here. They've given us this beautiful 10.1-inch LCD IPS clear black display, nice deep blacks with great colors, bright, vivid display with great off-axis viewing. So they've done a really nice job with this display. And we also have these really unique speakers, which are almost invisible, but provide very loud and great stereo sound. So definitely one of the better sounding tablets. And it's great that they're front firing. And hopefully we'll see this more from other manufacturers. Nokia has definitely hit upon something with these sort of hidden speakers. So they've done a really nice job here. The design overall is pretty nice. We have nice material quality. I really like this matte texture on the back. It feels really nice in the hand to use, and it's pretty fingerprint resistant. It does show some fingerprints. They're more noticeable under these bright lights, but certainly better than the glossy plastics from the other colors. We also have NFC technology, so that's available to you, and we have pretty decent cameras. So definitely overall, they've created a nice package here, and I can definitely recommend this to people who want an LTE Windows RT tablet. So that's going to do for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.